In this video, you'll watch me kill people with Aetherflux Reservoir as soon as turn 2. As it is a 4-mana artifact that gains us life every time we cast a spell, we will have to cast a lot of spells turn 2 to be able to pay the 50 life. This difficult task is solved by 2 cards, Mystic Forge and Echo of Aeons. Mystic Forge is great with all of the degenerate artifact ramp in our deck, letting us cast a lot of the cards off the top of our library. This is supported by Basalt Monolith and Mesmeric Orb, as if we can get both into play, Mesmeric Orb will mill the top card of our library when we untap a permanent, and the Basalt Monolith can untap itself. So we can either cast the top card of our library, and if we can't cast it, we can mill it with the Mesmeric Orb, letting us cast our whole deck. If you are worried about milling yourself out, that's where 4 Echo of Aeons saves the list, being both a way to refill our hand with Lion's Eye Diamond and Echo of Aeons, or it's just great with the Basalt Monolith Mesmeric Orb that I mentioned earlier. After casting a lot of spells, we can then cast our Karn the Great Creator, get the Reservoir from our sideboard, cast another spell, and win the game. If you do doubt me, you're gonna see the Aetherflux Reservoir kills in this video. Now realistically, what draw do you need to get a turn 2 kill? Well, it definitely starts with being on the play with a turn 1 Karn the Great Creator. Now, we are playing Legacy, so the opponent can have something like Force of Will to prevent this from hitting the table, so we've just got to hope that it sticks. After casting Karn the Great Creator, it does in fact resolve. Now, Legacy is a format where they're not too good at answering a Planeswalker on turn 1, so I just decide to plus the Karn the Great Creator to give me more options next turn. Some may say I should have minused the Karn the Great Creator here to get Lion's Eye Diamond so that then next turn I could Mycosynth Lattice, but that doesn't play around Lightning Bolt. Fortunately, the opponent just plays an island and a ponder and passes back the turn. With an Echo of Aeons off the top, we can now minus the Karn the Great Creator, get Lion's Eye Diamond out of our sideboard, and try and cast the Echo of Aeons. As the opponent didn't have Force of Will last turn, I'm hoping they don't have it this turn. Now the Echo of Aeons finds us an insane set of 7 cards. Specifically, Defense Grid is great here because we just gave the opponent 7 new cards so they could have Force of Will. What's good is Defense Grid completely turns off free counterspells unless the opponent has 3 mana to pay for them plus the free costs. So I continue my second turn here by playing Defense Grid and it hits the table. Now it is literally impossible for the opponent to have any form of interaction, so we can combo without worrying about anything. Using the Grim Monolith and the Mox Opal, I cast the Mystic Forge, which finds us another Mox Opal off the top, finding a second Defense Grid that has no use to us, so we can exile it with the Mystic Forge by tapping it. After casting a Lion's Eye Diamond, we find a Manifold Key on the top of the deck. This is one of the all-star cards in the list because it lets us untap an artifact for 1 mana. As Grim Monolith doesn't untap, we can still untap it for cheap, and it's good ramp. Now, with all this mana, we have enough mana to cast Mesmeric Orb and Basalt Monolith, and then use a Lion's Eye Diamond to untap the Monolith to then look for another Echo of Aeons so that we can wheel again. With a load of mana, the Basalt Monolith and Mesmeric Orb on the board, we actually have a guaranteed kill because we can Echo of Aeons 3 times, find the Karn the Great Creator out of the deck, or drawing from Echo of Aeons, then get the Aetherflux Reservoir. As we've cast so many spells, we can then cast a few spells and kill them with Aetherflux Reservoir. Fortunately, we didn't have to do loads of comboing because we did manage to find the Karn the Great Creator from the first Echo of Aeons, so now we just have to get a ton of mana, cast the Karn, and kill them. Yes, we managed to kill the opponent here, turn 2 on a mulligan to 5. What did help is that we were on the play and got the Karn the Great Creator down without them having the Force of Will. Now, a sad way to end this game though, is that the opponent conceded before we could activate the Aetherflux Reservoir at 60 life. Going into boarding, as we are a Karn the Great Creator deck, we don't have many options for sideboard cards, and as they are a Force of Will deck and we already have 4 Defense Grid in the main, we just submit it back. Going into game 2, we have a great opening hand. Not only do we have access to Defense Grid, but if we find a cheap artifact off the top, again, we could try and cast Karn the Great Creator on turn 1. With an Echo of Aeons off the top though, I don't particularly want to cast Defense Grid turn 1 because the Volcanic Island implies the opponent's on Blue-Red Delver and they could have Daze Up or Spell Pierce here. That instantly goes out the window when the opponent plays a turn 2 Thoughtseize and takes the Defense Grid. After they pass back to me and the Urza's Saga ticks up to 2, the best thing I can do is play my Mox Opal and pass, hoping to make a construct with the Urza's Saga to try and take an aggressive game plan. It seems like the opponent's on a control deck, so attacking them is very reasonable. Classic Legacy gameplay continues with the opponent casting 2 Ponders and shipping back the turn. Wanting to keep up the aggression, I make 2 construct tokens with the Urza Saga and get the Lion's Eye Diamond to set up this Echo of Eons down the line when we run low on cards. After attacking in for 4, I play my other's Urza Saga and sacrifice my City of Traders. Now, the opponent's about to cast an almost instant win card against us, and that is Meltdown. For 1 mana here, they destroy all of our constructs, our Mox Opal and Lion's Eye Diamond, only leaving us with an Urza Saga for turn 5. We quickly lost this game with the opponent whittling down our hand with counters and removal spells, so we're going to move on to game 3. Game 3 doesn't start off great with 2 no-land hands, so we have to mulligan down to 5. I debated between keeping a more fair hand with 2 Planeswalkers, but then I realized it's probably just way better to go for the turn 1 card in the Great Creator again and hope that they don't have the Force of Will. Like we did game 1, we've got to hope that they don't have it and we slam the Karn. This time, they do have the Force of Will, pitching a blue card into exile. Now, I've just got to pray in the heart of the cards that we can find something off the top of the deck, as we do still have access to 4 mana, meaning we can cast another Karn or another Mystic Forge. With the opponent playing a swamp and passing back, we managed to find an Ancient Tomb off the top. So now we can untap our Grim Monolith, but we still have the same problem that we have a lot of mana and nothing to do with it. But then, the opponent just passes the turn. So they kept basic Swamp in their opening hand, and no other lands, of course. So again, just an island off the top, praying that we can find something. To our demise, the opponent managed to find a Scalding Tarn first, but we find an Urza's Saga. So my opponent can top deck, but so can we. But what scares me is my opponent doesn't use the Scalding Tarn. So they kept a hand with basic Swamp that can't cast anything with basic Swamp, but also can't cast anything with Scalding Tarn. So they have to have something like Meltdown in hand. Now, you might wipe away this logic because they cast a Brainstorm, but I think you wouldn't keep a risky hand with basic Swamp and Force of Will unless you had a very powerful sideboard hate card as well in the hand. Things are getting better for us when we find a second Urza Saga, so now we can try and flood the board with tokens. It is clear that they Brainstorm lock themselves when they have no third land again, so I'm just going to make a token and they Brazen Borrower the construct before I get to untap. After making multiple tokens with Urza Saga, the opponent just kept casting clunky 2-mana removal spells that didn't help them develop their board, so they eventually conceded the game. Now, while we do have defense grids in the deck, Force of Will matchups aren't great, and that's because they can just counter our best spell when we don't have the defense grid on the board. But if you're a beast like me, here in game 3 and round 2 against Blue-Red Delver, I managed to have a defense grid on the board and resolve a Mystic Forge. This let me go through my whole deck, find the Karn the Great Creator, make a ton of mana, assemble the Basalt Monolith plus Mesmeric Orb combo, and kill them with the Aetherflux Reservoir. Hopefully this combo makes a lot more sense on screen now, being sped up, because I have broken down every card that I've used here on screen to combo in the last match. As I'm one of those Magic players that likes to do unique things in every format, hopefully this is the first time you've seen an Aetherflux Reservoir get activated 4 times in Legacy. Going into round 3, we essentially had the bye. This game 3 will sum up how the match went. My opponent plays 2 artifacts on the first turn, so I play a Karn the Great Creator, and they then can't do anything. I really liked how Karn the Great Creator played out in the 2 tournaments that I played, and it won me a ton of games just being Karn itself, rather than comboing. Sadly, we lost the last round to another Meltdown, but as always I'll open the chest for you gambling degenerates, and don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video.